Okay, so I've decided that I'm not quite ready to jump into chamber orchestra or orchestra. So we're going to do one more ensemble, and this is going to be a violin and piano series. I only have about nine scores for this genre, and it's the genre that in most classical music would be the violin sonata. Um, but I do consider it a chamber group, and I think a lot of contemporary music also for this ensemble is chamber music essentially. This piece that we're going to listen to today is called Piolín, and it's by Jose Julio Díaz Infante. This recording here is by Duo Chromatica, which is a violin and piano duo based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Mia Detweiler and Ted Powell. They're performing here at the University of North Texas, and this performance was uh, a couple months before I started my studies at that same institution. So I know this venue very well, and I know Mia, and I knew of this performance before I decided to go to UNT, and um, it was evidence to me that really cool stuff was going on at that school in contemporary music. So this is a Mexican composer. Let me pull up his bio. Okay, we're gonna skip his bio because I can't find much right off the bat here. Um, and I'm assuming the dedicatees here are the performers of the piece for its premiere. Yeah, this is Ensemble Wapiti. This would have been the premiere ensemble here. Formed in 2012, dedicated to experimental and contemporary music. Their first concert was a piece by Morton Feldman for John Cage, which is a pretty monumental sized work for violin and piano. This piece is a little bit interesting to look at. This is the first system of the score here. You can see that all of the sound is produced by ping pong balls, which are bouncing inside of tubes placed over the strings of the instruments. And there's 6 different sizes of tubes required to play this piece. You can move from left to right, bouncing the ping pong balls. You can move up and down the length of the string. The tube should not touch the string. It should just be the sound of the ball hitting the string. And there is some violin preparation, so the violin has to be placed lying down. There are some hairpins placed beneath the strings or into the strings. And the piano preparation includes a nylon cord threaded underneath the strings, fabric cord, which of course are like pulled underneath like this to bow the piano strings, and these are 5-second intervals. And the first thing we have is the ball bouncing on the tailpiece of the violin, back and like up and down the length of the tailpiece, and it gets faster and faster as it is bouncing. And then the piano, we are taking a much bigger tube and bouncing a ping pong ball into it and traversing up the range of the instrument, right, from the lowest B flat up to the highest B flat, and then back down. So let's see if we can visualize that in the first bit of the performance, and then we'll get into the actual listening. So you can see this is the longest length of tube. There is the tailpiece of the violin. And you can see that this is over top of the black keys. I just assumed, without seeing that this was over the strings inside the piano, but it's over top of the keys. So you can also place the ping pong balls and tubes over different parts of the piano, right? The piano is a very big thing to explore with different sections, and the violin also has different sections which can be explored. So yeah, with that being said, I'm gonna have a listen here. Hopefully you enjoy watching this piece come together. Okay, yeah, so really cool listening session today. When I first looked at this score years ago, I think there was something more mystical about it, and maybe I wasn't making the effort to really understand what was going on. But now that I'm really looking at it and how it's laid out, it's very practical. It's a very practical score, and I think it's very easy to follow what the performers are doing. And as for the piece and how it's structured, I think that it makes a lot of use out of very minimal material. There's like a very limited way that the performers are interacting with their instruments, and it creates its own little sound world, and effectively the two instruments are being used as like percussion instruments, but the implement, which is the ping pong ball, is very unique and has a certain amount of randomness to it. And yeah, I just thought it was really fun. For the longest time I wondered like how I came into possession of this score before going to UNT, and I think I'm reading here that Genevieve of the Premier Ensemble, not Duo Chromatica, but the Premier Ensemble, she was a guest artist at Montreal Contemporary Music Lab, and I did get a number of scores from one of MCML's organizers. So it's possible that that's how it made its way to me, because it's a small world, and Canadians share scores amongst one another. So that's probably how I got a hold of it. I hadn't found this recording necessarily, but when I visited UNT as a prospective student, I saw a poster for this concert, and I made a connection, and I was like, oh, that piece is being played here. That's really cool. So yeah. Obviously, I like this piece, but I think this time I took the time to actually get to know it and what makes it interesting, and hopefully this was a fun experience for you, and it's inspiring, makes you think about new music in a different way. We're going to keep trucking along, and we're going to go back in time with each episode, getting to know the violin and piano repertoire all the way back to Charles Ives and his sonatas, which are like turn-of-the-century works. So that's the plan, and this is the most recent piece I have for this genre, but it's still quite old at this point. It's from 2015, so yeah, that was Piolín by Díaz Infante.